They were who we thought they were. Not my words. Going to be the words of every man in the coaching staff and every player of the Minnesota Vikings team. The New York Giants put on a facade the past 2 weeks, looking very good both on defense and offense, but it was all a smokescreen. True colors shine through in this ball game. Now, I can't put it all on the players or the coaching staff. A lot that went into losing this ball game was kind of put up to fate, and I'll explain as I go on here in the video. This is the official New York Giants versus Minnesota Vikings full game review. Giants fall to 2-3 in the loss, and a lot went into it, as I just said. Wow. That was a tough one to watch. Holes on both sides of the ball. That as I said, true colors have shined through. We showed in this game that we, at this point in time, are not legitimate contenders in the NFC East, in the NFC, in football at this point. If we play like that against New England this coming Thursday, I don't even want to see that final score. Starting with the defense, first thing I'm going to say, it's that classic case of 1 step forward, 2 steps back. We showed pretty consistent improvement from Tampa Bay into Washington, and it just didn't hold up in this ball game. Obviously, there's a massive difference between the wide receivers we were facing against Washington and the Vikings, and that shined through. One person that I'm not going to talk overly bad about in this video is actually Janoris Jenkins. He did a very nice job of holding down Diggs for the most part in this ball game. He did a very nice job when heading him up man-to-man coverage, but I cannot say the same about the rest of the secondary. Early on this year, mainly in the Dallas game, and then of course in Buffalo as well, we showed a lot of inexperience, but seemed to grow as time went on. But just like that, we're back to phase 1. Before I get into that more, one thing for starters, we miss Connolly, Ogletree, and Davis more than we ever thought that we would. It is actually painful watching Stupar and Mayo attempt to run this defense. They are an absolute handicap, both on in coverage and in run support. These are bona fide special teams players that we have starting at interior linebacker. The middle of the field has been a problem all year already at this point, but now that we have these guys in, it's even more obvious. I mean, first of all, run support is non-existent. In coverage, they're playing 15 yards past the line of scrimmage when it's a 3rd and 4. So is it the play calling or is it the talent? I'm going to say it's both at this point. I really like what we've been doing with Jabril Peppers. If there's one good thing I can say about our defense, is moving Jabril Peppers up into the box more has paid huge dividends, and he kind of showed out in this ballgame. He put on a good performance. That's really the only positive thing I can say on defense, though, at this point. But beyond the interior backers, obviously, still our biggest hole is going to be in the secondary. It's the most frustrating and infuriating when we're shooting ourselves in the foot. And the one instance that I think about the most was a huge momentum shift in the game. We actually held Minnesota to a 3rd down, 3rd and long. They are on the ropes, and we do something stupid, get called for an unsportsmanlike penalty. I mean, you can argue that there wasn't much there. And then later in the drive, you give up the touchdown. Of course, I'm talking about DeAndre Baker. He was, you can say what you want. He was just looking at him. But when you're standing over somebody with your head down going like this, the referee, it's taunting. It's clear. It's an unsportsmanlike. It's 15 yards. That gives them a 1st down. And then you go right ahead and you give up a touchdown pass to Thielen. The ball doesn't lie. Baker, I get it. He's a rookie. There's a time in between the maturing process, but what are you doing taunting? First of all, you're a baby in this league. You have done absolutely nothing, and for the majority of the season, you have looked like pure dog shit. What are you taunting? He's not the only one I have harsh words to say about. What is Grant Haley doing covering Adam Thielen? Not just on this touchdown pass, but throughout the game. I get it. Minnesota has 2 stud wide receivers, and as I said, Jenkins did a pretty nice job at shutting down Stephon Diggs for most of this ball game. But Grant Haley is not even in the class. He's not even in the class below the class of Adam Thielen. He got absolutely exposed, and again, I will say, where is Corey Ballantyne? Prior to this game, I called exactly what was going to happen. And if you've been following this channel since the beginning of the season, I have called how every game is going to play out thus far. I don't want to sound cocky or boast myself too much, but it's facts are facts. I've called the way these games are going to go. Prior to this game, I said that although Minnesota has a dominant rushing attack, which they do and which they showed, and don't worry, I'm just about to get into that, but with everything circulating in the media, with everything going on, they're going to put on a display in the passing game. The only way to silence critics and calm all the noise is to put the play on the field, and that's exactly what they did. Entering this week, we were a top 10 team against the rush. Needless to say, coming out of this ball game, we will no longer be in that category. We had absolutely no answer for anyone rushing the ball for Minnesota in this game. We have about 700, heck, we have nearly 1,000 pounds of flesh on our defensive line, yet it's not just runs to the outside. We're running in between the tackles. We're running in between the guards, and they're picking up decent yardage. That's ridiculous. As a team, Minnesota rushed for 211 yards on 34 carries. That's 6.2 yards per carry. That spells out losing football. Leave out the pass. That is the story of the game. Obviously, heading up that rushing attack was, of course, Dalvin Cook, who had 132 of the 211 rushing yards. Another thing I went over in my preview video that I said was going to happen was we were, first of all, facing an O-line that was giving up pressure on 33.3% of pass plays. That's a third for those of you that aren't great at math. But with pressure being put on a quarterback that often, there's something behind it. Now, we did get decent pressure on Cousins all game. I will give our line that. They were getting hands in the face, but not really breaking him and getting him out of the pocket. The people getting him out of the pocket are our linebackers. So now when you're rushing the D-line and not the backers, that's more men in coverage. We're covering the field. But if you're not getting any pressure with just the D-line, which we weren't, and you have to send those backers, that is opening up holes for these little dump-off passes that, as we know, Kirk Cousins loves to do. Kirk Cousins is a safe, conservative, no-mistake type of quarterback. He doesn't like to throw the deep ball unless he knows he can make the play, and he's not going to take any risks. He'll take a sack before he tries to fit it in too tight of a window. So when we're not getting pressure, or we are getting pressure only because we're sending that many people, as I mentioned, holes open up, and that's exactly what happened today. Kirk Cousins finished with a line of 22 for 27 for 306 yards and 2 touchdowns. And as I said, it played out as I said it would. We got pressure, but not with the D-line alone. Consistently used backers, and we got dominated by screen pass plays. It was time after time after time. They knew that we couldn't get to them with the D-line. We would be sending heat. Kirk Cousins steps back in the pocket, lets them come in over the top of his tackle with blockers in front. Cook, in addition to his 132 rushing yards, finished this ball game with 6 receptions for 86 yards. Over 200 total yards in this ball game. And as I said, a lot of those receptions was just easy money. Small little screen passes with nothing but green grass in front of them. Not to say that that was the whole attack, although rushing definitely dominated this game. The Vikings proved a lot of people wrong and just showed that it was just a slow start for their offense, as Kirk Cousins looked good throwing the ball deep as well. Mainly to Adam Thielen. Realistically, there was no one else that posed any sort of a threat as far as a wide receiver in this ballgame. Diggs was held in check, as I said, for most of the game. Had one kind of garbage time play where he picked up a lot of yards, but mainly it was Adam Thielen. He had 7 catches for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game. One of my bold predictions going into this ballgame is I wanted the Giants to have 5 sacks. That was a bold prediction that did not come true, of course, as you know now. The Giants were only able to muster 3. In that bold prediction, though, one of my biggest caveats was I thought that at least one, I was saying 1+ would be from B.J. Hill. I thought he was finally going to break out against an offensive line such as Minnesota's. He did get pressure, did not end up getting a sack whatsoever. To this point, that 5.5 sacks in his rookie season is looking like a complete fluke, as he has been non-existent this year. The 3 sacks, of course, coming from Marcus Golden, who is honestly looking our best defensive player and an amazing free agent pickup at this point. Dexter Lawrence had the 2nd, and RJ McIntosh had the 3rd. Nice to see sacks coming from our D-line, that being McIntosh and Lawrence. But again, it's when we're rushing multiple people, not just using that D-line. I always try to finish out these segments with something positive. And in a loss like this, it's really hard to muster anything. But as I said, Jabril Peppers had a very good game. When put in this new position where he's in the box, changing up the defense here, he has looked very good, and he looked good in this ballgame as well. His biggest play of the game, of course, was knocking that ball loose, forcing that fumble at the 2-yard line. And the Giants actually recovered that. Tuzar Skipper hopped on the ball. As I'll get into in a moment, didn't net anything positive for the Giants in the end, but still a great play by him. He has looked much better, finally coming into his own in New York. But as I said at the top of the video, we are who we thought we were. Looked good these past 2 games, but we faced a very, very real team today, and the results showed that. Now, if I move ahead to the offense, not much more impressive on this side of the ball, but a lot of things went into that, as I mentioned at the top end of this video. As we went through the game, I noticed 3 main things that all but sealed our fate in this game. For starters, the first thing that ultimately, as I said, sealed our fate in this game was Wayne Gallman going down with a concussion. Everything changed after that. Gallman has shown that he is a very serviceable back in replacement of Saquon Barkley, who, of course, we knew would be out for this game. And I believe when he went down, the entire game plan had to change. Now, I like John Hillman. I do. But he is not ready to be a consistent down after down after down back. Very talented young kid, might develop into something down the line, but at this point in time, he's not really the dual threat that a Barkley and a Gallman is. Yes, can he catch the ball, but that's not his forte. He's a power runner up the middle, and backing up him was Penny. I mean, Penny's a fullback. Yes, he can carry the ball, but when you're held to one dimension, this is the result that's going to happen. We have such a viable, dangerous offense with even Gallman on the field, because there's always the threat of throwing to the running back and then, of course, throwing to receivers and then running the football. But when Gallman went down, everything was wiped off the table. And the second thing was a momentum shift time after time after time in this game. Now, I'm not sure if it's Jones being a rookie and he's not quite comfortable yet changing plays at the line, but you need to read the D pre-play and make a decision. There were multiple occasions in this ballgame where everyone, 70,000 people at MetLife and hundreds of thousands watching at home knew exactly what that defense was doing, and Jones just went with the call as played. The most obvious of these, of course, was one I just recently mentioned. Jabril Peppers knocked that ball loose, got the fumble, Giants take over on offense. Obviously in very dangerous territory, only at the kind of the 1.5 yard line. And it's a simple halfback draw that was nearly handed off to half of the Minnesota defense in the end zone. I mean, everyone saw that they were sending heat. They were sending everyone. And Jones went with the play as called. Now, young and experienced needs to learn, but come on now. This is obvious. You need, as a quarterback, to take control of this ball game. Huge momentum shift at that point in the game. It was a one-possession game, and we give it right back to them with 2 more points. You just cannot allow that to happen. And the third thing that pretty much sealed the fate of this game is immediately from the outset, Daniel Jones was under consistent pressure. Now, the difference between Minnesota and us, they were having very good success with just their defensive line rushing the quarterback. Now, they do have more of a 4-man set along that D-line, whereas, we just have the 2 guys up the middle there with 2 backers rushing. So it's a little bit different in terms of that, but at the end of the day, they're only rushing 4 men and they're getting consistent pressure. First thing I'll say in regards to that is Nate Solder is not a good player. Period. Nate Solder is not a good player, especially for what he's being paid. But even if he was making a fraction of what he's making, he's still not a good player. Not a good value at what we paid for him. Now, I get it, Giants. You don't want to look stupid. You don't want to admit that it was a failure. But we have a very prized asset in the backfield now. Now, I'm not letting anyone else off the hook here besides like a Zeitler, and Remmers actually looked pretty good himself. But Jalapeno on quite a few occasions did not look great tonight. Will Hernandez got fooled by some of the schemes that were being run. I have to admit there is some pretty decent similarities between Tampa Bay, how they were switching up and changing blitzing assignments, as did Minnesota. I think Minnesota looked at that game film and realized what they need to do to get pressure on Jones, and they did that very well. Now, as I mentioned, Wayne Gallman going out changed absolutely everything. It was very clear that when he went out, the play calling had to change. As I said, we were one-dimensional at this point. The defense knows that all we have is the pass. Yes, we might run the ball, but Hillman is not much of a threat, and they're willing to concede a 5-yard rush and put everyone in coverage. And that's exactly what happened for nearly all of this ball game. The big story, of course, for us, besides Saquon not being in the game, is who would be in the game. Golden Tate making his regular season debut. Woohoo. Don't get me wrong, I stand by my comments I made pregame. Golden Tate is still a very viable and very good wide receiving threat. He was just non-existent in this ball game. For much of the game, he had 1 reception for 5 yards, caught a few more additional passes in garbage time football after the game was already over. Outside of that, there was really nothing to talk about on offense. There's really not. The one thing that I guess we can really bring up is this Daniel Jones to Darius Slayton is going to be a fun combination to watch for years to come now. Slayton showed in this game that he's more than just a deep threat, although he did beat Xavier Rhodes downfield, which is awesome to see, a young rookie beating a veteran cornerback. But he showed a lot of his route tree today. He showed he can run multiple different routes, which is very good to see as well. So big future coming for him. But outside of him, again, not much to talk about. He finished with 4 receptions for 62 yards and a touchdown, our lone touchdown. But yeah, outside of him, nothing working on offense. We continued to try to run jet sweeps, 2 times with Evan Ingram, 1 time with Sterling Shepard, to no avail. Drives me nuts every time we try that. Giants have been running that crap for years now, and I get it. Ingram is a burner, and he's a big-bodied person who can run people over. And they were obviously resorting to that because we didn't have any other rushing attack, and we needed to keep the threat that we could run the ball in effect, but it just wasn't working against Minnesota. But as I said, yeah, not much to say on the offensive side of the ball. Very ineffective. Jones showed a little bit of inaccuracy in this game. One good thing I can say about him, when the pressure was coming in on him, he is very strong in the pocket. He has no fear when a guy is in his face as far as stepping up and still making a throw. But we have a lot of work to do, a lot of work along that offensive line, even more work on the defense. Yeah, I mean, as I said, when you're one-dimensional, the run game is completely off the table, and you have a team with absolute beasts in the secondary in terms of pass coverage, that's the results you're going to get. Cue the Richard Sherman meme. Anyways, guys, Jones finished 21 for 38, 182 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. He was also sacked 4 times. The Giants will fall to the Minnesota Vikings 28-10. We are now 2-3. We now have a short week going into New England, playing in Foxborough on Thursday night. Just days away now. That is a very quick turnaround after suffering a tough loss like this. Of course, Gallman not going to be available. No way. He's concussion at the very least a week for him. So he is not going to be available. I guess the only thing we can really pray for at this time is Saquon Barkley was saved in this game, so he is ready for Thursday. Prime time in New England. And beyond him, Ogletree and Davis, we need them back as well. Hopefully everyone is healthy for Thursday. But I've had enough thinking about this game. I've looked at some of the film, and it's just ugly. I've showed you a lot of the ugliness in this video. You had a team with a lot of pressure on them to perform, and we allowed them to perform. And that's pretty much the story of this game. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like if you did, and sub to the channel if you haven't already. There are going to be expedited videos coming out earlier this week, of course, since we are playing Thursday. So earlier in the week, be on the lookout for the usual videos, top 5 things to watch for, and of course the full game preview and predictions. 2-3, guys. 2-3 going into potentially the toughest game of the season. New England primetime in Foxborough. Let's just hope for some of that Giants-Patriots magic. But I'm going to get out of here, guys. Until next time, I'll see you in the next one.